We're rolling. In 3, 2, 1. Today in the show, we have Nikki Griffin and Orvella Small with SNAPS, the Foothills SNAPS, which is, SNAPS stands for, go ahead.
The Special Needs Association for Parents and Siblings.
Special Needs Association for Parents and Siblings. You can be found at FSNAPS, that's fsnaps.org. Currently, SNAPS serves over 931 families in the Foothills region. Just incredible. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about an upcoming event as a fundraiser for SNAPS, where you get to listen to the one and only Theo Fleury. That's going to be happening on Friday, April 12th. Thank you so much for being on the show, Orvella.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
I appreciate that. And Nikki, we are only set up to listen to Orvella, but Nikki will probably lean in and get some mic time as well. So what kind of support does SNAPS provide, and who does it provide it for?
Well, when SNAPS started 20 years ago, it was parents meeting parents. Lots of families who move to Alberta don't have their immediate family nearby, so they need to depend on others in order to get the support that they need to learn about things that are out there. So our overarching umbrella is family support and everything that falls underneath that. When I speak about family support, that has many different tentacles, you might say. So one-on-one family support can mean that one of my staff or myself are going to a school to help a family negotiate or learn more about their ILP or IEP or IPP, many different names. Different schools have different titles.
And those are standard protocols for dealing with special needs, and that's a large spectrum, special needs.
Yeah.
But for individual issues, those are just sort of the how to deal with it? It's the plan.
It's the plan that schools would have, yeah.
Okay.
It could mean that we're going to the children's hospital with the family. Quite often it's the moms going by themselves, so we might be going to the children's hospital or a doctor's appointment. So we can help take notes so they can listen to what the physicians are saying when they're working with their child and make sure that they are paying attention at the time and we're making notes for them to be able to have afterwards. We meet prior to that so that we have questions ready to go, and we make sure that the parents ask those questions at the time and don't leave going, I forgot to ask that. Okay. So those are just two of the major things that we do. Family support is also parent-to-parent. We call it a step-up group. So parent-to-parent step-up, where families come together and support each other. We bring speakers in to talk about RDSPs, Registered Disability Savings Plans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we bring speakers in to talk about FSCD. Our world is about acronyms, and what are they?
I used to be a soldier, so I understand acronyms.
FSCD is Family Support for Children with Disabilities. PDD is Persons with Developmental Disabilities. AISH,
that one I knew.
Yeah, there you go. AISH is the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped. So our family support program works prior to birth. If a family knows, we'll support them and get them hooked up where we can, on to death, whatever that might be. So we start at pre-birth and we go to whatever age there is that needs support. We'll help hook them up to services.
So let's just go through a few of these and maybe have a real-life example, just so people kind of wrap their head around what SNAPS does. So asthma. How do you support somebody with asthma, and do you have a related story? That was on the list.
So a family might come in who's just been diagnosed with asthma, and they go, so what do I do now? And so we may not have immediate supports for them for asthma, but what we can do is hook them up to someone in Alberta Health. There's quite often programs running that families can get more information on. We usually do a little bit of research to make sure that there's something that can happen for them in the rural area. That's part of the role of SNAPS, is to make sure that families get the service in the rural area as much as possible and don't have to go to the city if they don't have to.
So if parents with asthma either don't have the resources or they haven't done
don't know where to go.
They don't know where to go. They come to you
call.
and you help them know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Asperger's. Is it the same thing as sort of as concierge service, or how do you help somebody with Asperger's?
So, at some point our language has to catch up because Asperger's is now an old term. Everything goes under the term of autism. Most families, though, who were diagnosed with Asperger's will continue with that, and that's fine. But it's really under the same umbrella of autism. So for the immediate supportive families, we can do those things that I just talked about. So we have families come to us all the time. Diagnosis as is autism or Asperger's, and it's being diagnosed more and more. So we see more and more families coming in, and usually it's coming in just don't know how to get hooked up to services. Their child may have some behavior issues. And so how do we get support for that? So that's where we get them filling in the forms. We get an application in for family support for children with disabilities. That program provides families with different supports. So it could be some counseling, it will be some respite care, some community aid care, depending on the age of the child, and then other services that will meet the needs of those different behaviors that they might need, speech, OT, and PT.
Cerebral.
Get them hooked up.
This is fun. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. I just keep throwing them up there. Cerebral palsy. How do you help?
So for cerebral palsy, it'd be a similar process. They need to get hooked up to services, so we help that happen. We don't have anybody in the rural area that's strictly cerebral palsy. That's how we are unique. So what we can do is certainly share the information of what's available, because there is a group in Calgary of what's available, and help them get connected in that way with any supports that they might need that are more than what we have to offer. But typically, we will do the same thing for them here and getting them hooked up to supports and making those connections.
All right, now you
can
help
them going to Calgary.
You're going to have to help me out with some of the terminology I found on the website there. What is DD? The initials DD.
DD is, now you got me thinking.
It was on your website.
I know.
Developmental disabilities.
Disabilities, yeah.
Okay, I should have been able to surmise that.
Yeah.
Maybe figure that out on the website so that we don't have to guess.
Yeah. So I put the words in with it, right, instead of the acronyms. I think what's important in that is you get families who don't have a diagnosis of autism or Williams syndrome or whatever. So they have something, but no one really knows what to give them as a title. And so quite often physicians or whoever's doing the diagnosis will just say, they might say global developmental delay. They might say those types of things. So developmental disabilities can fit a whole lot of things.
On that, we were talking before the show that I worked under PDD as a respite worker for a couple of dudes with developmental disabilities, guys about 10 years my senior, and looked after them for about 3 years, and we're still friends today. Tell me about the R word.
Well, that's not a word that we use at all in our organization, and we educate for others not to use it. In fact, we quite often post it on our Facebook page, because that's something else I do.
Yeah.
And I make sure that we try to educate the ramifications of using the R word. It's nobody likes to be called the R word. And to be perfectly frank, it used to be a medical term, and it has now been removed from the DSM-V whatever. It's not in there anymore either.
From the DSM.
It's gone. Yeah.
I asked that because working with the guys, I saw their hearts break when they'd hear it on TV or what do you have to say to comedians that still throw that in there without any thought, and they think there's nothing wrong with it? So what do you have to say to the comedians that throw that in their routines?
The comedians that use the word aren't thinking about what they're doing and the people that they're hurting when they use it. And I wish they wouldn't, because it's a total reflection on people who may have a little bit of a different problem in learning or doing, and it's a very derogatory term. Not one I appreciate and hope they'll learn not to use. There's other words they could use.
Agreed. They don't seem to understand that people with developmental disabilities have TVs.
Yes.
And they like comedy shows, and just like everybody else. And when they hear it, it breaks their damned heart.
Yeah.
It makes them feel so much more less than, and they've lived their whole life feeling less than.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing they need is somebody using the R word and going on and on and on about using that as an insult.
Absolutely. And it doesn't even have to be a comedian. I've had to educate family members who will use the word, not even realizing that it's a reflection back on the person that they're at our office getting support for. I will educate. I don't hesitate at all to say, excuse me, if you just wouldn't use that word in this office, please. And then they stop and think, oh, I didn't mean it that way. That's fine. It's not allowed in this office. The same as if we had an allergy to perfume. It's not allowed in here either. Neither is the R word.
On the other end of the spectrum, I was interested to see on the website that you list gifted and talented.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So how do you support those that are gifted and talented under SNAPS?
So there are many families who have children who are gifted, and they struggle getting supports for their sons and daughters in the same way as other families who want an inclusive education and want to be able to make sure their sons and daughters have reading and writing and arithmetic. So the families who have gifted children are struggling to get that more enhanced program quite often and struggle with being able to get it. So we'll support them to do that. We'll go with them to their meetings and advocate for it.
That's also strikes me right between the eyes, because in grade 2 I was called a slow learner. And what the truth was quite the opposite.
Yeah,
I was just bored.
Yep.
And I was completely missed by the nobody caught it. Nobody caught it until college, where I had honors in college.
Yes.
It's like, oh, a slow learner, okay.
And I think,
those labels are powerful and they're dangerous, because you hear it, just like the R word. Mm-hmm. You hear it once. I heard it once in grade 2. I believed it and lived accordingly until I was an adult.
Right. They're very harmful. And labels are they're a catch-22, because families want to know what they can do to be proactive and preventative. So we need to have something to be able to tell us what to do. And families want supports unfortunately, in the education system, what depends on a label. And so if families aren't able to get a label, they can't get what they need in the schools. And it's a real struggle, because I don't want to label anybody. Mm-hmm. I'm just Orvella.
Well, it's tough because we need a nomenclature. We've got to call it something.
Yep.
But at the same time, we have to be mindful to not limit somebody with a label.
That's right.
Because especially kids, they believe in labels. If that's what you tell them, then that's what they believe.
If everybody would just think of it being as I can, you can, we can, it would make a huge difference.
What the heck is Williams syndrome?
Well, actually, I'm quite familiar with that one. That's the diagnosis that my own daughter has.
Okay.
And so it's a genetic diagnosis, and it's progressive. So difficult to get a diagnosis on, but it's diagnosed via the heart condition that is usually there. And it's one that we live with every day. But I was one of those parents who wanted to be proactive. It took a long time, actually, to get the diagnosis, because it's very rare, 1 in 100,000. So it was quite rare. And I just wanted to know how we could be preventative in what was going on. So I was one of those, I'm going to say, assertive parents in finding out what I could do to make a difference, and never limiting our daughter. It's kind of funny, because one day in school, she heard someone say that Sheena had the diagnosis of Williams syndrome. And we went home for lunch, and she says, I don't want Williams syndrome. What is it? I don't want it. She might have been 6. And I said, it's not who you are. That's strictly a word for us to be able to get supports for you. I don't want it. I said, well, that's fine. We don't have to talk about it in that way anymore. Yeah. And so we just talk about you as Sheena. And that's how we've lived. She's now 31.
What specifically is it?
So it affects your fine and gross motor, so your muscle tone. It affects speech early on. Gifted hearing. So able to tune in, and when someone's off tune, it's harmful. It hurts.
It's like a superpower.
Absolutely, the hearing is there. Yeah, you couldn't even whisper in our house. But just being able, and there's some cognitive delays as well in there. So it's just being able to make the most of what we have, though. And music is one of the things that I would say is a positive for our sons and daughters who have Williams syndrome. They
Maybe
love it.
Beethoven had Williams syndrome.
We never know. You never know.
You never know. And then more. Apparently there's more. Because that's simply not enough. You guys are slacking over there. You don't have enough on your plate. What else do we need to know about SNAPS and who you support?
I think it's important to know that I think that we were known for a long time as only supporting kids. And we support the whole age group. So one of the things that happens when we support a family, it can start right at birth, or it may not start till the kids are 10. But then they have to transition into the adult world, and we play a really important role in that transition piece. So kids can work when they're 14. I think every kid should have a dream of working. If they want to work at 14, let us help you figure out what that looks like. So
just not in a coal mine.
Just not in a coal mine, no. So, pre-working skills, pre-employment skills will help with that. Helping the families to get ready, because school is a pretty safe place to be, 7 hours a day or whatever it is. But once they hit 18, they're not in school anymore. So what are we going to do? Are we going to look at post-secondary opportunities? Are we going to look at employment? And are we going to move out of home and live in the community? So those are the questions that we get to ask and get answers to, and hopefully put a plan for that family around moving into the adult world, and then supporting them to do that, making sure they're hooked up to services if that's what's needed.
SNAPS is a supporter of the Alert ID cards.
Yeah.
Why?
So we actually initiated that out here in the foothills. There wasn't one before, and it started because post-2013, we had lots of feedback from the individuals that needed to talk to a first responder that wouldn't. Their anxiety took over, and they couldn't talk and tell the first responders who their families were, or who to connect, who to contact, because lots of these kids weren't in their homes, or adults weren't where they maybe would have been. And so from that, it took us a while, but we got the funding to be able to do the first red card. And what we do is, it's a card. Yes, there's the bracelet, which is most common to people, but the card actually has immediate contact information. It has strategies on how, if communication is one of the problems, on how to get answers. And I can give you an example. We had a mom who just picked up her first red card who had to take her daughter to the hospital. She didn't have any of her ID. The first red card has all the information on it that is necessary, plus a picture of the child or the individual. So the mom handed that card in. The hospital accepted it, wrote everything that they needed, and just happened to flip over the back and read what was on the back. So the mom and the daughter are sitting in the doctor's office, and the doctor walks in, and the first thing he says is, my favorite Disney princess is Sleeping Beauty. What's yours? And that had been on the back of the card. If you want to start a conversation with my daughter, who was 4, talk about Disney princesses. And so that started off a very positive appointment with a doctor, and being able to get an answer and move forward and have a positive
So these cards are understood by all first responders? Yeah. They're very familiar with it?
Yes.
Emergency rooms?
We do training with EMTs, the RCMP. It's in the doctor's offices are familiar. We just kind of send those guys the PowerPoint and hope that they
Is that a national program, or is it just local?
Just local.
Okay, so if you're in Edmonton and you have one of these Alert ID cards,
they may not be familiar.
They'll look at you like you got 3 heads.
But what I will say is Winnipeg, there was a program in Winnipeg, heard about our card, because we happened to be on CBC talking about it one time. And they initiated their own card for people who couldn't speak. So we started something, and it grew somewhat nationally.
There's a lot of talk and concern about the V-chips, or versions of them, where they have a little implant in the hand. It's already happening in the States. They're starting with those that can't really say no. So it's starting with dementia patients. Mm-hmm. And they're putting a little V-card, just like when you chip your dog. And you put a little scanner on it and goes, beep, this is Bob. And Bob is allergic to A, B, and C and has trouble with this, that, and the other. And this is where Bob lives, and this is Bob's contact information. Mm-hmm. Done with a V-chip. But it's a concern. It's the whole, it's the mark of the beast. And who knows, maybe it is, I don't know. It just seems like progress to me. I don't know if I'm going to get one, but I'm a little bit superstitious. But has there been any talk about V-chips as the next evolution of the Alert ID program?
It hasn't come to us. In fact, you're the first one to mention it to me, so I'm not up on the queue on that one. Sorry. So no, it hasn't come to us at all. Our families actually are more worried about their children running away and how we can stop that, and having that card as a possibility for contact should that happen. Really, honestly, haven't heard anything about the V-chip.
All right. Well, they're real.
Yeah, now I have to go and investigate.
And I'm sure there's other forms of it. It's about the size of a grain of rice, and they put it in the web of your hand, and away you go. And it's probably going to be some point in time where that's your bank card, your ID, and everything's like, well, that would be kind of handy.
Yeah, I know right now families have been researching the watches that they can get that would be tracking their kids. That's the newest one that we've been kind of aware of, is a watch that'll
there's
track.
all kinds of apps.
And now with absolutely.
My wife uses them. I call them the tracker jackers. But there's all these follow me apps. And if your kid's got a phone and your kid hangs onto that phone more than they do their own life, wherever the kid is, there's the phone. So
that's right.
There's all kinds of shareware apps that exist right now, which are probably handy. Mm-hmm. For sure. Like the other day, we had there's a pretty serious accident just out behind Cimarron here, and the first thought is, oh God, where's my kids?
Yes.
What were they involved? What's going on? And it's nice to be able to know.
Push a button, check.
Of course, I come from the time of rotary phones with a little plunger and a party line. A little bit different. The Flurry event. Yes. So how did you connect with Theo? This is pretty cool.
Well, it's been more difficult, I guess, in the recent times to be able to find the funds that we need. And one of the ideas that came up at our organization was to do a bigger event and do a dinner event and have a speaker. And we have a committee of folks that came together. And it just happened that one of the people on our committee had a connection to Theo's dad, actually.
Okay.
And so they had a conversation with his dad, and he said, I'm just going to connect you. And so it was that easy. I don't know if it's that easy, but it happened that quickly, and we were able to make that connection to be able to talk to Theo to see if he'd come out and do this for us.
Well, Theo's a very kind, generous, and incredibly humble guy. I was lucky enough to have him as a call-in on my show. Hopefully next time he'll be in studio like yourself.
That'd be great.
Well, it's better sound quality in studio. But so the event is April 12th, Friday, April 12th.
Yes.
And tickets are $125 each, or $1,000 for a table. Mm-hmm. Is that right? How many at a table?
A table of 8.
Table of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Doors open at 5. Dinner starts at 7. This is at the Linwood Ranch in Aldersyde. Where's the Linwood Ranch?
Linwood Ranch is just east of Okotoks, actually.
Okay.
Just on the highway, the Aldersyde Highway out just east, and you take a left, and you're almost there. It's pretty easy to find.
And where can people find tickets?
Actually, we've got the event up on Eventbrite, and that's the easiest way to get your tickets. And as we say at Snaps, we're there to help you. If you have a struggle, just give us a call. We'll help you figure it out.
Have you created a Facebook event with the Eventbrite link on it?
Absolutely.
I do that every month. I know that one.
You bet it's there.
Okay.
And then it's up on our website, and we're doing everything we can to get it out as many places as we can.
And to also show your support for Snaps, another way to do that is to purchase a very cool book titled In Pursuit of Ordinary, A Journey to an Inclusive Alberta. And proceeds from this book go to Snaps. The book is available. You can go to fsnaps.org or show up. Where can somebody show up to buy that book?
Absolutely. They can come to our office, which is 123 4th Ave Southwest in High River.
That's really difficult to remember, though. 123 4th Ave.
Southwest.
So
right downtown, but the you can't miss us. We're the brightest yellow building on the street.
123 4th Ave. Southwest. High River, Alberta.
Yeah.
That sounds like my Alberta healthcare number. It's very easy to remember. And that website again, fsnaps.org. That's Foxtrot, right. Sierra, November, Alpha, Papa, Sierra.org. fsnaps.org. And again, they help 931 families in southern Alberta. Fantastic cause. Orvella, Nikki the mute over there because we don't have a microphone for her. Thank you both so much for being here. And
Thanks for having us, Mark.
good luck to you.
Thank you, and maybe we'll see you at the event.
All right. For our listeners out here, a free way to support the SNAPS organization is to share this show. Mm-hmm. We are available on YouTube, on Anchor.fm, iTunes, and about a dozen other platforms. Everywhere podcasts are heard is where we are. So whichever your favorite app is, please share like the sugar bear. And share all over Facebook, Instagram, whatever kids are doing nowadays. I have no idea. I'm an old Facebook guy because that's now old school. Can you believe it? Thank you for tuning in to the Meincke Show podcast.